Welcome back.
Back at it. It's been 10 years. Uh,
Just a lot going on, man, with you and your projects, what K&B going on.
K&B, MSOs doing recordings for splits and stuff. I converted to Mormonism.
Yeah,
So I've been
I
kind of
know
busy with that lately.
you went to Russia to interview Putin, which is really cool. So I mean,
In Minecraft, not in real life. But coming back with Rise Above Records, this is a label that we wanted to do for a while. It's kind of your wheelhouse, big time.
Yeah, and continuing our kind of label retrospective, and the first one being Peaceville, which I thought was great. Lots of great stuff.
My girlfriend got me the Thurgothan shirt for Christmas. I wish I had it for the Peaceville episode.
No, I'm surprised because, like I said, you're actually wearing sleeves.
Yeah, well, I'm a new man now,
okay.
So I kind of turn over a new leaf. I showed up to your house with a White Claw in my pocket, so I'm not too far off. But no, this is a great one to do. There's a lot of I want to say there's a whole lot of diversity with this, but it's an interesting label. I mean, Lee Dorian starts this label in '88. Interesting little piece of history too. Started from the Enterprise Allowance Scheme. Are you familiar with what that is?
Mm-mm.
Margaret Thatcher did something for the United Kingdom during the Thatcher era, where it was basically if you were unemployed, she would give grants or money to people who were wanting to start businesses. So basically, Rise Above Records started because Lee Dorian was in Napalm Death and got this money from this grant to basically put out some records and pretend like he was unemployed.
That's interesting you say that because just today I was talking to a buddy of mine who lives in Edmonton. He's like a brother to me, and he bought the new Striker album. It's a great Canadian metal band. New album came out today, but he mentioned that it's on their own label, which is subsidized by the Canadian government.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like probably the same type of situation, or not. I think it's maybe Alberta, the province of Alberta, that subsidized.
Yeah, Cursed. The band Cursed used the same kind of things in Canada for.
Yeah, so that's kind of coincidental that you brought that up. But it's funny when I look at. You think Lee Dorian coming from Napalm Death. There's really only a couple minor releases that.
Yeah, early on,
like Napalm Death.
For '89 and '91, the Napalm Death is an EP early on. It's like the first Rise Above release they do is Napalm 7-inch. It's kind of like stuff that would be on Fido. It's just kind of their own standalone EP.
Mm-hmm.
SOB, I love. Thrash Night and What's the Truth. I mean, those are classic grindcore records.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's SOB touring with Napalm Death in Japan. I mean, it's huge. Long Cold Stare, too. It was a UK band that was on Trapped in the Scene comp. Really cool if you're into like Youth of Today style hardcore. Long Cold Stare is kind of an unsung UK hardcore band that was from the same area as Cathedral and other parts. They're pretty cool. Mm-hmm. It's not really until you get to like the Dark Passages comp where Rise Above starts to really take the doom turn right as Cathedral's kind of starting.
I say as soon as Forest of Equilibrium, that seems to be. It's no more of like the grind, like any of that stuff, and it's just all.
But even so, in '91, Cathedral, St. Vitus, Stillborn, Penance, Count Raven, Revelation, they're all on this comp. Nobody was putting out music like this in '91. This is one of the few labels that was even venturing to this style of music.
Yeah.
Solely going to do that.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, when he went all in, he went all in. So. Everything on this label, it's
Solitude Eternus was on that comp too. The first Dark Passages comp.
Yeah, another great band that I know we'll probably have to do like a U.S. doom. I don't know. Have we done that?
We did in Maryland one, and Salvation's Answer I think is really, to me, that's the first proper real Rise Above release. I think Salvation's Answer is the quintessential first Rise Above album because I mean Napalm Death and SOB don't really count as like. What the label is about. When you think of Rise Above Rock, people forget that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't think you think of like the stoner, the more the acid rock, doom type stuff. This is great. This actually was re-released, reissued on Shadow Kingdom Records. But this is a great.
Oh yeah, had the Doom sticker on it.
Absolute, killer album.
Great.
Doom.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Penance, Road Less Traveled comes shortly after in '92. That's another classic.
Mm-hmm.
Another classic Doom record that again kind of brings that new. We've talked about Penance before. Thy Grief Eternal. I love the old pre-Electric Wizard stuff. Kind of Doom Death. It's great.
It is.
And they were kind of around from the beginning with Lee, going back to like their pre-bands.
They're still. Yeah. No, they're not. Remember they left.
They're a music cartel now, aren't they?
No, we'll have to get into that because there was something that happened. I think the newest Electric Wizard, I think they split, so I don't think that they're on Rise Above anymore. If I'm mistaken, now that I think
I'd rather listen to a colonoscopy than anything they put out now, so I'm not familiar. But
I mean, it's and we'll get into that too with those albums and which ones that you're not a big fan of as compared to.
It won't take long.
Yeah, no, they're on Spine Farm now.
Spine Farm.
So,
still a bigger label though.
Yeah, no, yeah, and it's this to me is really up my alley because a lot of the bands, it's like I love Napalm Death, great stuff.
Sure.
But like you said, when you think Rise Above, they are kind of the premier stoner doom label.
Yeah,
they're like the Music Cartel back.
And then Napalm EP is kind of like a bootleg anyway. It's not even really like an official release. But I think really even like In Memoriam by Cathedral, Mourn, self-titled Mourn, which is a really good album on too. I went back and revisited that. Great album.
Yeah, right.
Classic. It's great.
Right there. This was reissued, I'm pretty sure, several years ago on Rise Above. So yeah, no, this is another killer release. It's going to be one of these things. So many of these bands, I'm just going to like pop them
out, yeah.
Because that that's like.
Do you like that first Wizard record, or the first Electric Wizard?
Yeah,
I don't mind it too. I didn't enjoy it much when I was younger. It was never really. I always thought of Come My Fanatics as like the first great one, but
like the self-titled.
Yeah, the self-titled is a little different. It's a little more cathedral-like. I think it's more like classic doom.
It is. I love pretty much anything Electric Wizard. I even came around on Wizard Bloody Wizard, which is the last one. I know you stop really at.
We'll get to that,
and we'll get to
that.
But
and I'll go into my reasons why.
Yeah, but going back, these guys. I mean, Rise Above was like instrumental for me personally in the late '90s, early 2000s for the stuff that I was getting into, especially with stoner stuff. Like the Orange Goblin albums. The first three albums that they came out with.
And they appear on a Dark Passages comp too, around I think 95. Orange Goblin, Paul Chain, I Hate God, Acrimony, Pentagram, Iron Man's on that, Mourn, Trouble, Solstice.
Acrimony is another.
Down was on that comp. Like that's how I first heard about Rise Above from the comps. That's how I first heard Down. Orange Goblin, another band. I got into them when I got into Electric Wizard. But Time Traveling Blues, the Time EP, and then Frequencies from Planet 10.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I stopped though.
You don't like the Big Black?
Big Black's cool, but I think these early records are my favorite ones.
Yeah, the Big Black, like I said, the first three for me, I know when Coup de Grace came out, I was kind of, like we were talking before, the episode here, something about it where it got a little less stoner. It's not that I hate that stuff, it got a little less stoner.
It's like a Zeke turn.
And again, a little more just like straight rock, Motorhead, kind of.
Which I should like more, but
I saw them around that time in Columbus with my buddy Ethan, and they were phenomenal. I saw them after that, which I can't remember the name. Cannot remember the name of the album after that. Thieving from the House of God. It might have been that, but to me, it's like the late '90s. And these guys powered through. There's some labels like the Music Cartel that I don't think exists anymore. Blues Funeral recordings now it's owned by I think a guy named Jad Schickler was in it. He owned it's gonna kill me. I'm thinking of the label. I'll figure it out here. But it was another absolutely legendary label back around that same time, and it's right here, Meteor City. God dang, Meteor City was like another. That was another big stoner label at the time.
They also got 90s. Sleep Jerusalem, which I totally forgot about. People forget about Jerusalem being the original recording of what became Dope Smoker.
Yeah, what's your
And
favorite song on that?
my favorite version is the Jerusalem version.
Yeah.
Because it's much, and Rise Above doing that was really a big, I mean, that was a monumental record. Like, Sleep pretty much took a big chance. Now that's not really that uncommon. Back then, for a band to do one song that's a weekend and a half long was a major, and Lee kind of having that foresight to have them do that, allowing them to take that chance, big for them. Yeah. That's my favorite. When I think of Sleep, I think of Jerusalem / Dope Smoker. Holy Mountain's cool, but
Holy Mountain was like so that's more of an earache thing.
Yeah.
But no, I totally get it. And I thought it was, Sleep was, if you look back at this label, dude, there's so many albums that are just flat out classics.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because
Come My Fanatics.
Yeah, you look at a lot, like when we do Nuclear Blast or Relapse or Century Media, there's going to be a lot of shit.
Yeah.
A lot of trash. And it's like,
this is mostly quality over quantity.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, just
it's very
don't
focused.
Put out a lot, but what you do put out, you make sure that it's good.
I think after 91, it's so focused stylistically that if you're going to be a band on Rise Above, it's almost like you were. When I first heard Witchcraft, which we'll get into, I checked it out because I just knew it was going to be something at least of quality. Uncle Acid kind of had the same thing right around. So people checked out because they just knew, well, if Lee co-signs on this, it's probably in the style of something you might want to check out.
Witchcraft was weird for me because I liked all the stoner stuff, but when I heard Witchcraft, it's not stoner. It really went back, like you could tell Lee, and also
back to the pentagram type,
like early 70s, late 60s, early 70s sound. And then you know that he loves that shit because he also has the Rise Above Relics imprint, kind of the offshoot, where he released some great albums on there as well. That, we can talk about. I think the one is Necromandus. I have it around here somewhere. Yeah, right here. Which is the
Angel Witch too.
Yeah. But back then, you couldn't. To me, it was like I could close my eyes and just point at an album, and it was one of my favorite albums. Come My Fanatics, one of the first three, Orange Goblins, Sleep, Goat Snake, which is,
I think too,
huge for me.
Come My Fanatics too, and Dopethrone, may as well talk about really quickly because these are these are monumental records. There weren't a lot of bands. It's hard to go back and think. There weren't a lot of bands that sounded like Electric Wizard sounded. Yeah. They took what Sleep was doing. They took that classic doom. They really created their own sound. That three-piece with, Mark Greening and Tim Bagshaw and Just, that was a special lineup that I think that they just had it. You could tell they just had something. Come My Fanatics and Dopethrone were not splash records at the time, but I remember hearing there was buzz about them in Terrorizer. Terrorizer was always kind of known for having homegrown. They loved English bands, but and they played here notoriously in front of like 13 people with Sons of Otis and Orange Goblin, I think.
The ones I got were actually on the Music Cartel. Those are the original versions I got because I remember just reading about them in a magazine that, again, when you get into labels, it's like you want to check out everything on that label. And so with Music Cartel, I was into stuff. And so a lot of those early Electric Wizard albums I did have on the Music Cartel, but Dopethrone was massive. Like Dopethrone and Come My Fanatics, those two are just like genre defining classics.
Yeah, they pair well together too.
And I remember buying the self-titled Fanatics and Dopethrone all at the same time. From the record from Quonset Hut, actually. I remember they had them all, and they were cheap. They were like, $11 each or something. And I was like, dude, I'm gonna get them because they were on Music Cartel, and I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna pick them up. And it was that, and then it was like Goat Snake, which I think one Goat Snake album I have is on Man's Ruin, but Goat Snake, Grand Magus.
Flower of Disease and one were on Rise Above. That's what I remember being.
Mm-hmm.
And both great Goat Snake records. The Southern Lord album they did was also really good. But
Yeah, but Goat Snake is absolutely killer. I wish they would keep putting stuff out, but I think the last one was something black, something blues. I have it, but I can't remember. That was several years ago at this point, but it was great going back and looking at this label because that's my era, the late '90s, early 2000s. Just listening to all this stuff, dude, I was like, holy shit, this label's untouchable.
yeah, I think Electric Wizard too. I mean, for me, it really ends with Let Us Pray. That's one of my favorite Wizard albums. You can feel the band breaking up. You can like feel the tension. It's a hateful record. It has a really misanthropic vibe. It has a very bleak, kind of angry tone to it. It's really quicker than a lot of their records. Sounds like it was hate. Sounds like it was made by three guys that hate each other. Like feel the tension. And after that, there's distinctly with We Live. I think it starts a different band, a different sound. That's something I'm just not. I think the chemistry is just lost.
I think it, to me, I get what you're saying because it's not as grimy, it's not as gritty, it's not as, completely just blowed out stoner, but from We Live on, with Witch Cult Today and Black Masses,
It's more well put together band. That I will argue it after Let Us Pray. But
it just, there's something about those albums that for me, um, I don't know, man. I almost, I dig those as much as I dig the early stuff. Um, so I don't have a problem with it. And I know for you, you kind of thought that the music, to me, like that era after From We Live On, was more like Hammer horror,
yeah, it was
where
there was more of I guess a defined
mhm,
sound, like a niche image that I think is fine. But I think that it was almost more genuine that they kind of did whatever with the first original three piece. I think it was just it's unmistakably even Chrononaut and one of my favorite releases they ever did. Um, some of the EPs they did not on
mhm,
Rise Above were just awesome. Like they were it's amazing.
yeah, Super
Super
Coven.
Coven's one of my favorite EPs. That song Burnout that's my favorite Electric Wizard song of all time. It's completely insane.
I remember seeing that at Ultrasound,
Yeah, me too.
and I had a bunch of other stuff, and I never bought it, and now it's like out of print.
Yeah, Bad Acid Records, which is long since.
Yeah, and I'm just like, but no, that's another killer release. Um, but I came around even on Wizard Bloody Wizard, which I think is my least favorite of theirs, but I still like it a lot. But it's not. I just want them. Although I love all the stuff, I want them to go back to that Dope Throne. Come
I
off
think
that
no, they
ass.
think I think, and going back to Witchcraft, like you were talking about before, I think Firewood is one of my favorite albums. I think
Yeah.
ever on Rise Above. I think it's a great record. I think
Mhm.
that's Queen of Bees is one of my favorite songs by that
Mhm.
band. Awesome. I think Witchcraft to me was a band that had the style and the image. It seemed very genuine what
Mhm.
they were doing. I think nowadays that image is so corny, throwback kind of 70s. It became so ridiculous over time that now it's so
It is, and
watered down.
it is, and it became that to me, like Graveyard came out. I dug the first couple Graveyard albums, but then it was like there were so many bands, and it really kind of then you started having all of these kind of what they would call, female fronted occult rock out. And to
Yeah.
me, it was just corny, even though I love like the first Jess and the Ancient Ones. I love the Devil's Blood.
Mhm.
Stuff like that. Like the first Blood Ceremony
I
wasn't
thought
bad.
Blood Ceremony. I was about to say, but I think Blood Ceremony did that in a really cool way, where it didn't come off corny.
Yeah,
Self-titled Blood Ceremony is awesome.
So I thought the first couple were great, but no, I completely agree with you. It got to a point where it really was like cosplaying,
It is a little bit.
and it became, and it was like that with uh, all of these offshoot bands, and then it started like every band had to have the word like electric or acid or
Yeah.
it was like electric acid wizard mammoth weed mountain bong. And I'm just like, this is just fucking, dude. It got so ridiculous. And then
Yeah.
there's that one band, Electric Citizen, that I always tell people the story. I think they were opening for Fu Manchu. And back then, I loved supporting bands, and I heard some of the music, and I thought it was all right. But it was another one of those female fronted occult bands. I remember going up, and I had all their merch. I had like a really cool raglan. I had one of the LPs, something else, and it was the band was there, and the chick singer was like working the merch table, and she was kind of like whatever. I was like, hey, how you doing? And she just but they were talking about Judas Priest. I remember this was right around when KK Downing left. And they were talking about how big of fans they were. It was like the guitar player, bass player, and drummer. And I heard them, and I'm sitting there like waiting to pay. And they were like, yeah, I can't believe KK's not in Priest anymore. It sucks that he's dead. And they were like, yeah, we're like the biggest fans. And I'm going, he's not dead, he just quit. And they said, no, he's dead. And I was like, no, I thought you said you were a big fan. And they were like, yeah, we are. I'm like, well, then you should know he's not dead. He just quit.
Yeah.
He's not in the band anymore. And then they were just like totally arrogant. And I just like, I had all their shit. And they just dropped it on the table. And I was like, nah. I'm like, you guys are fucking posers. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy. But it just rubbed me the wrong way, and I just thought, and then I saw him again. I only heard a couple tunes, and I figured I'd Then I saw him that night, and it was like choreographed stage moves. The band was great,
Yeah.
but it's just something about it that wasn't. It was like the
Very disingenuous.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think like as far as like something that was really ugly and grimy and had like a real, not a cult vibe, but a dark vibe. Unearthly Trance, Season of Seance, Silence of Science. That's a great record on Rise Above. I love Unearthly Trance. I think they were a cool band. Saw them early on in the early 2000s. Great band. Doomy kind of death metal influence too. I think Teeth of Lions, Rule of Divine, Rampton. That's one of my favorite. Justin Graves from Iron Monkey on that one. Lee Dorian on vocal. Awesome. Just a great album. Those bands I think of as heavy, dark, without trying to be some kind of image focused thing. It didn't really need it. And I think a couple underrated records too. Hangnail, 10 Days Before Summer. That's a great record. Kind of goes unnoticed. Chevy, Electric Sleep, and
dudes.
Celestial Hi-Fi. Those are great records.
What'd you think when I was like, yeah, the Hangnail, the decomposed?
Yeah, that's great. It's good, like just
dudes.
rock,
Yeah.
Kind of Caius-y, like a little bit like.
It was 2 Hangnail albums, and then another band called Sally.
Sally, I never really checked out Sally too much.
It's just kind of in the same vein. I love the first 2 Chevy albums, The Eternal Sleep, Celestial Hi-Fi.
Those are great. I just had it on before we set up.
I cannot remember the song on Celestial Hi-Fi. What's Up, Mr. Zero? So, great album. I think from Nova Scotia. That's the first song that I heard was What's Up, Mr. Zero. But this whole album, these first 2 albums, they're kind of like Orange Goblin to me, where it's like
Yeah.
the first couple are great, and then they kind of changed a little bit. Um, it's funny, if you look on YouTube, you can find their live show that was at, I think, what did the foundry in Cleveland used to be called?
The Blind Lemon.
It's a full live show, Chevy.
Okay.
I think I'll have to send it to you. But now, if heavy Aussie like vocals,
Yeah, definitely.
crazy heavy Aussie like vocals, but
Which reminds me, I think that's it's kind of like Count Raven. I think has Ozzy type vocals too.
they do. Other than Lord Critus, that was on, I think, the first album.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, those first two Chevy, again, around that same time. It was like 99.
I think Moss
98,
too is
99.
another band that has a really dark vibe without really trying.
I used to have.
Tombs of the Blind Drugged is one of my favorite records on
I
Rise
thought
Above.
I had those. I was looking at,
Subtemplum's great too, but I think that Moss Tombs of the Blind Drugged is awesome. That's such a dark doom death kind of record. If you're into doom death and maybe
Yeah.
that stoner stuff's not your thing, Moss is a great band.
Moss, that stuff to me reminded me of the early Electric Wizard stuff. If it was like 10 times slower.
Yeah, and more death metal influence.
Yeah. For me, it was like the top artists for when I think about Rise Above. It's Electric Wizard, Orange Goblin, Witchcraft, Uncle Acid, and the
I
Deadbeats.
think that you gotta mention them. Yeah, they're a huge band.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say Revelation really only has one record, so it's kind of unfair. But I guess I would say Goat Snake
Well, they got
or Chevy. I think Chevy's a band that kind of stuck with.
I actually have numerous Revelation albums. Did you know that?
Yeah, I always think of Salvation's Answer for Rise.
But no, you're right. The only other two that I think are excellent that Revelation put out were, Yet So Far and then Never Comes Silence. So these two are
You know who I would pick?
both phenomenal.
Band that you don't. Church of Misery has to be. It's so appalling that you don't like them.
If I ever meet that bass player, I'm gonna bust that fucking Rickenbacker over his head, dude. That
The way he
First of
holds
all,
it is.
it's so like contrived, dude. It's like slung so low, and he just sits there and plays the neck the whole time. Like it shouldn't annoy me. It just annoys the hell out of me, and I don't hate the music, but it doesn't grab me like other stuff did. And it has nothing to do with them being Japanese, because I love Japanese stuff.
It's not racial.
No, no, I'm not like, my grandpa's in World War
Right,
II.
you're like a whites only doom guy. That's
No, it's I should, but I'm just not really. I'm not really into it that much. But there is a band that was started on Rise Above that now has become, arguably, they're like more popular than anything that's been on that label.
Ghost.
And that's Ghost.
Yeah, that is kind of. I mean, that is long forgotten thing, but
Mhm. And it's
just Scooby Doo. I can't. I never got it. I don't understand it at all.
well, it's when they first came out. Dude, this is like from the MySpace days. I remember just finding all of these. Like Ghost was one. Orchid was another band.
Orchid's a great band.
From the MySpace days. This is on Church Within Records,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. The EP they put out. And I remember with Ghost, it was like this creepy, like, what is it? It gave me a Merciful Fate vibe, but it does not sound like Merciful Fate.
It doesn't at all.
It was more like, it had more of a Blue Oyster Cult vibe to me. Because it was metal, but it wasn't that heavy. And I followed them since, and I love them. Obviously, Tobias Forge, the lead vocalist. I mean, he is Ghost, but he was in Repugnant.
Yeah, I know that.
And I love that band. I get the Scooby. Here's one thing I'll say. For people like you that don't like Ghost because you think they're Scooby-Doo, but it's just Kiss. Because Kiss could be, it's costumes, and I
Well, I
mean,
think Kiss wrote better songs. I think that's, but yeah, I don't. The image doesn't bother me. That
well,
doesn't
not
bother
you
me at
don't
all.
think Kiss wrote better songs. You think Vinnie Vincent wrote better songs.
Exactly, but the image is like the not what I don't care about that. But that doesn't isn't why I just don't like the music.
No, that's completely. I respect that, but it's crazy to know how big they got and that they
It is kind of
started.
yeah. It is cool to think that Uncle Acid too. Pretty big band.
Yeah, they got really big. Um, I think that it's almost like they've kind of lost some steam. And with Volume 1 and Bloodlust are two of the best things I've ever heard.
Yeah, it kind of. I think the nostalgia kind of wears off rather quickly.
Saw them open for King Diamond a couple years ago,
Yeah, they're a popular band. Yeah,
and I'll be honest with you, it was excellent.
they're really
They
good live. Yeah.
they were excellent. Bloodlust to me, I listen to it all the time. I think they took that kind of witchcraft. They really, to me, are like the Hammer horror. They have that vibe.
Yeah.
They're like the musical equivalent of it, but they do it right. But I don't know, just like the Night Creeper, Wasteland. I wasn't into those albums as much. Mind Control's not bad, um, but Volume 1 and Bloodlust are where it's at, and I don't know, man. I think that Rise Above really hit their stride. Um, it really had their finger on the pulse because they signed a couple bands that ended up just being
Yeah.
Uncle Acid and Ghost.
I think Blood Ceremony too is a pretty. They did some Iron Man releases and stuff like that too, like releases. So there's a lot of classic stuff in that. I mean, Lee is such a figure now in the Doom thing. It's kind of what his I wish they do more Lucifer too. I forgot about those releases, but
You saw them, didn't you? Didn't you see
yeah,
Lucifer up
Lucifer's
at the
great. At
was it at the
Foundry.
Foundry? And you met
Nick.
yeah,
Yeah, he's cool.
how was he? You said he was
Really cool. Total rocker.
How was that Joanna chick? Was she hot in person? And
She's cool. I mean, everybody was kind of centered around Nick Anderson, but
yes,
he's cool. I mean, I was more excited to meet him than anybody.
yeah, she's probably like, what the
I
hell?
asked him about. I think I asked him about the like Nihilist and stuff like that, and like some of the demos and like I asked about like Swedish punk and stuff. I had an anti-Cymex shirt on, I think, and we were talking about that a little bit.
Oh, that's cool.
He's into like stuff. He's cool. He's really helicopters. Everybody kind of likes
Dude.
a lot. So he's cool. He's what you would expect. He's he's a total rocker.
Yeah.
Cool guy though. Really down to earth. He was.
Think about Helicopters and Entombed. I mean, that dude's been a part of.
Oh yeah.
He literally is a legend to me. But
Oh yeah, he is. 100%. Down to earth guy though. Pretty cool. I gotta say like Dream Death too. They've done reissues of too, and that With the Dead project that Lee does. That's awesome.
So there's two projects that came out that I think Teeth Alliance is kind of like a Doom supergroup in a way.
That's a little bit more like I want to say sludge, but it has a little bit more It's different.
It is
More like something on Southern Lord.
but With the Dead, and then as recently Friends of Hell. These are the two bands that, with the Dead.
And Tim Bagshaw from Electric Wizard in that too. I mean, that's why I got checked
Dorian.
out.
Yeah, then Leo Smee, who was ex Cathedral. I have both albums. They're okay. I'm not.
Lee's vocals are probably more your thing on With the Dead than Cathedral.
Yes. Now,
A little less obnoxious, but
let's just for a second talk about Cathedral. I have every album. I love that band. Lee to me it's an acquired, even for me, he's an acquired taste vocally.
yeah.
There's some days where I just can't do it, but no matter what day it is, no matter what I'm in the mood for, I can always listen to End Time. That's my favorite Cathedral album.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think it's the
Most stripped
heaviest.
down.
It's sludgy. It's
Yeah.
It's not corny.
I always give it to people whenever they say only like the first one. I always tell them to check out End Time.
Yeah, and then Friends of Hell, the first album actually had Albert Witchfinder. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
um, that was on my list of 2022. It was on my top albums. Amazing record.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it has Taz that was in Electric Wizard,
Mm-hmm.
and Tinelli Yarva
Mm-hmm.
from Sentenced, the Black League, Impaled Nazarene. He's on bass. Albert Witchfinder's out, and they have Per Gustafson, who's Hell Butcher from Niflheim.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I know they have a new album coming out. I'm totally gonna buy it.
I think that'll be cool. I mean, those guys know what they're doing.
I'll give them a chance, but with Niflheim, it's black metal. You know, it's more that like
Yeah. Well,
Swedish Venom style. You know, old school Swedish black metal. I think they're a great band, but I'm thinking, okay, Albert Witchfinder from Reverend Bazaar is like 10 out of 10 for me. Anything that dude touches, I'm like, yeah, I'm all over.
the Electric Wizard Reverend Bazaar split on Rise Above is great too. It's essential.
Yeah, and it's like, so I'm gonna give them a shot, but they're kind of another, super group. It's not as much as With the Dead because Lee is in the band, but
I think Teeth of Lions too was more of a project. I think at the time it wasn't really considered a super group. I mean, Iron Monkey also wasn't really.
I don't even like that term, super group.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
It's more just like a descriptive term that just a bunch of people, a bunch of musicians that we know that are in a band.
Yeah.
With the Dead, I don't know, if they're going to be doing anything else.
We haven't talked about Gates of Slumber though. I know you're a Gates of Slumber fan too. So I think Hymns of Blood and Thunder. That's a good record. That's kind of different. They haven't. That's like Grand Magus. I kind of pair that with the same thing.
Yeah, actually, we saw. Jay and I saw Gates of Slumber up at it was Now That's Class at that time, but there were
probably 4 people there.
Literally,
yeah.
And I remember, I think Jay bought a shirt, and when he put the shirt on, it was an extra large, but it was like this wide. He was like, "What the fuck?" It was. He ended up washing it to the point where now he can wear it. But I remember when he didn't put it on there, and when we got home like the next day, he called. He was like, "God damn it, dude!" He was like, "This thing's like a blouse. It's like a daishiki when I put it on." But they only played a couple songs and they walked off the stage, and then the one dude in the band passed away.
Yeah.
And they kind of split up, and I think they did. What's the name of the band that they did? I think it was just called Wretch.
I thought so, yeah.
Back to doing Gates of Slumber, which I don't know what the hell's going on. They were supposed to put their last album is 2011.
Yeah.
It was just Wretch. Carl Simon's great. Thought they were going to be doing something.
Yeah, there's probably nobody at that show.
It was like it was sad.
Yeah.
They sounded great, but they only played a few tracks, and then took off. They were just like, "We're out of here." It was just a weird vibe. They weren't being jerks at all, so I didn't know exactly what was going on. But it was not too soon after that I think Jason McCash. I mean, a lot of people that have died.
Yeah.
Iron Bob.
Yeah, where are they from again?
Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just
that's that,
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to what they have. They're not on Rise Above anymore. They're on Svart, which is a cool label. I'd like to see them back on Rise Above, but they're another great U.S. Doom band, man.
Yeah.
They have a lot of U.S. Doom influence, but there's a lot of European influence in it too. Almost like
they're a good band if you like that kind of style for sure. A little unsung, but I mean, it's unfortunate.
The Angel Witch Return, As Above So Below. They did release that. That's a really good album.
It's a cool album.
For anybody that likes Angel Witch. Beastmaker that I was never really into.
I never got too into Beastmaker either. It's kind of a little too costume.
So Trevor Church, his dad is Bill Church, who was in he was a bass player for Sammy Hagar.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he's in, if I remember correctly, he should be on that Montrose album. I'm pretty sure. We can just keep talking as I look for this album. I know it's in here somewhere.
You never really got too into Beastmaker.
I'm not a big Beastmaker fan. Just because, where the hell is it? Oh, there it is.
I wish that Rise Above would do the SOB reissues and Long Cold Sarah personally, but
yeah. So I'm not a big Beastmaker fan. I know Trevor Church also does Haunt.
Yeah,
that's his other
Double
band.
Cross.
But yeah, Bill Church right there on this absolutely classic. Have you heard this?
Oh, Montrose is great. Yeah.
This is Ronnie Montrose. I mean, Sammy Hagar. That absolutely disgusting album. But yeah, that, which I never knew until.
It's his dad.
Yeah, my buddy Jason he lives in L.A. He's a huge Haunt fan.
Okay.
And he was like, yeah, you know who Trevor Church's dad is? And I was like, no. Not what I know. And,
right.
He said, yeah, it's Bill Church from Montrose. And I was like, what?
Okay. How did you feel about, speaking of supergroups, how did you feel about Firebird?
That's with Steer.
Yeah. Well, not with a supergroup, but like after Carcass. I imagine you'd be more of a Firebird fan than a Carcass fan.
Is that Steer or is it?
It's Bill. It's Jeff Walker.
Jeff Walker. Yeah. That's what. Okay, sorry. It's cool. I remember the one album that had like their faces on the front. It was like a picture, like a drawing.
Yeah.
I know the very first album is like Yellow. I wasn't too much of a. To me, it was like a natural progression for Walker.
Yeah.
With Swan Song,
right.
And then like he did Black Star.
Did Black Star, yeah, which was the Carcass song.
Then it was like Firebird.
Yeah. It
was just kind of like, all right, dude, just cut the Carcass vocals because you know that's coming. So Firebird's a great album. I think a lot Witchcraft and Graveyard get a lot of credit for how they sounded, but I think Firebird was probably. It's good that you brought them up because they're just like that kind of bluesy hard rock.
Absolutely. Again, a little unsung.
Mm-hmm. But no, this is I don't know what they have. What Rise Above has coming out. Nothing on the horizon for 2024. I know a guy I talked to on the message board I'm on told me to check out Witch Skull, and I did, and it's not bad. I think they're an Australian band.
Yeah, I haven't really paid too much attention to what they do that's new. I think they kind of are banking off of the spending that Ghost money still. I mean, you can't really blame them. There's not really. I think it's good though because the style has kind of got so contrived that whatever they do put out something that'll be quantity. I mean, it'll be quality over quantity, which I think is good.
What do you think about? Did you like the new Church of Misery or? Yeah,
Church of Misery is pretty good. They're another band that's kind of gotten. I think a lot of these bands have too many albums. I think they kind of made the point. Like, kind of, I've heard it. Like, there's not really, know, you've done enough. But actually, the guy from Church of Misery has a new project that I recently did listen to, and I wish I could remember the name of it. Actually, I think it's a bass player. Go back to that.
Is it Sonic Flower?
No, it's not. Sonic Flower is a great band, though. But, it's Gates. I'm sorry.
Gates?
Yeah, Gates is really good. Just check it out. So it's, they have a
heavy metal punk, Japanese.
Yeah, it's good. Like there's, it's pretty cool. I mean, as far as like,
I know Sonic Flower is actually really cool. They're on Heavy Psych Records.
Yeah.
That's some cool stuff.
That Self-Titled record's really cool from 2003.
And it's just, dude, it's just that bass player. It's not, he just kind of ruins it for me, which is, Admittedly, it's stupid
Yeah, I
because
know what you mean.
either I like the music or I don't. But when I see him play bass, I'm just like, come on, dude, this is like, I don't know. He's like going overboard with like the burned out,
Yeah, the bell bottoms are kind of a thing too.
dude, the huge bell bottoms, and he's got that Rickenbacker, and it's like literally dragging on the ground, and he's just got the neck, and he's just going.
Yeah,
It's I don't know. I can't. It drives me completely nuts. But this is a great label for anybody that wants to kind of cut their teeth with
yeah,
stoner doom, because there's not many albums on, like, there's not many bands on the label.
but they're all good.
Yeah,
Right.
so you can just go. I even have what is it, Admiral Sir Cloudsley's shovel. I have several of theirs. I don't have Very Uncertain Times. I don't think I have. Maybe I do have Keep It Greasy, but I know I have the first two. Don't Hear It, Fear It, and Check 'Em Before You Wreck 'Em.
Mm.
It's really kind of just British acid rock. There's some psych in it. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, that's a niche sound
Mm-hmm.
for sure. No, I would say as far as like albums that are, I would go with people should check out if they haven't. I would go with that Hangnail 10 Days Before Summer.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely go with Moss, Tombs of the Blind Drugged. I think that doesn't get enough attention.
It's a good album.
Unearthly Trance, Season of Seance, Silence of Science. I think that's a great one too. And I would maybe have people check out that Firebird record. I think is really good.
Yeah, and this, you see, I got the first two.
Grand
I
Magus,
have
right?
the first. I have several of them. These are my favorites. So, and it's over here, Music Cartel,
Mhm.
but they're under license from Rise Above. These two are different than the later stuff.
Yeah.
They're a little bluesier. JB, vocalist, was also in Spiritual Beggars for a couple albums. These two albums, to me, 100% fit on Rise Above.
Yeah.
When it got to like Wolf's Return and Iron Will, it was a little more power metal-ish, like a little more straightforward. Not that I dislike them, but whenever I listen to Grand Magus, it's especially the self-titled. This is an absolutely phenomenal album. Very organic, like stripped down, in your face. Maybe it's bluesy. To me, it kind of sounds a little like Deep Purple with like Sabbath.
Mm.
The vocals, JB's great vocalist. So Monument is almost like,
It's almost like Solstice.
dude, Solstice is another. We ever do a UK Doom?
Oh yeah, they were on the Dark Passage comp too. Solstice or a second one. Great,
Mm-hmm.
talked about them before. They kind of toe that power metal doom line.
Yeah, and this, I guess to me, this is a lot like, it's almost like if Zakk Wylde were to do doom metal, it would sound near this.
Yeah.
It would just be kind of like that. But, so yeah, I would say Grand Magus. Anybody that wants to get into Rise, if you're just like, let me delve into the Rise Above, catalog. Grand Magus, Electric Wizard. Would you say Dope or Fanatics?
I would say Fanatics and
Okay.
Dope.
Yeah,
either
one.
one. It doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty much the same. But
I would say go those two first before you go to the self-titled, because the self-titled is,
I think so.
a little different. Orange Goblin, first three. I know the Big Black has, Quincy the Pig Boy.
Oh gosh.
Scorpionica. I mean, there's some great stuff on this. Dude, it is weird when I look at this. It just takes me back to that
Time
when
period.
I bought this, and I was just like, I grew up listening to Sabbath and, Blue Cheer and Iron Butterfly, and
Yeah.
I always wanted stuff that like kind of harkened back to that And so when I started picking stuff like this and Chevy and Goat Snake, when I heard Goat Snake, I was like, oh my God, dude, you know?
Yeah.
And it was so cool. And
I just wish he'd reissue the SOB stuff. Like that's personally what I love. I mean, I think that probably won't, but I mean, it's it's cool. It's also great that it's named after a Napalm Death song, the label.
yeah. And I think the dudes from, yeah, Greg Rogers and Guy,
Acid King, Obsessed.
Goat Snake had, I think, like the rhythm section for the Obsessed.
Yeah, it is.
So that was always really cool to me. Um, which that's why I got into Goat Snake, because I love the Obsessed. Black Age Blues, that's one, yeah, 2015, dude.
Tremble Under Hoof is the one I was thinking of, the EP on Southern Law. That's a great EP.
Yeah,
That's a great EP.
that's over there. But yeah, I do have that. Um, we have to do a Southern Lord one too.
That I think I was gonna say probably next. I think since we just did Rise Above, and these are kind of shorter episodes. Like we'll probably be about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Southern Lord would be the best one to do next.
Yeah,
because there's some great. I think it pairs really well.
Yeah, it's great. When you said you wanted to do Rise Above, I thought this is going to be short and sweet because
there's quality. It's just not a whole lot.
Unless you want to sit here and talk about newer Electric Wizard for the next 45 minutes, good with that.
Yeah, I'd rather just castrate myself.
A lot of the reissue stuff that's on Rise Above Relics, I hope he keeps putting stuff out. I have several of them, but Necromandus, Cycle. He put out Love Machine, Horse, Bang, a lot of these really obscure 70s bands. And I think Necromandus had Iomi on it. Maybe he was a guest on it. Necromandus, great. Or the Rise Above Relics, great logo.
It is cool.
But he goes all out with it, dude. They're all slip cases, and then the books are just
a lot of information. Yeah, it's almost like what FOAD does with their. Cause I think FOAD is kind of like a relic label. They do so much grind and punk and Japanese hardcore, and we have the guy from Cribble Bastards.
Mm-hmm.
FOAD Records has become pretty much a reissue relics label, which is awesome. And they do so much information when they give records, like a history of.
I mean, it's cool. Yeah, it's great. It's great, and so Lee really does do an absolutely phenomenal job.
I think this is kind of where their stride is. They should probably keep doing this.
They should,
like an FOAD type thing, because
there's another label.
There's so many great. At least as a fan of music, like I'm more willing to check out bands from the '80s and stuff like that than I am newer bands, because I like history and stuff like that. So
this has got, and this is it has Orexis of Death, which is the full album, and then you got a live show on here. But yeah, anything that you can find, Cycles over there, that one, I'll play that. I'll give you a sample before you leave. I think you'll like that one. That's a little more like MC5-ish.
Okay.
But this is obviously a little more Sabbath.
Right.
Than anything. Some of the other stuff, like I think like Love Machine and stuff like that is, it's more like proggy, but Lee does a phenomenal job with it. It's just keep putting out, like I put another With the Dead out. Let's make it a little better than the first two. I mean, I'll buy it regardless.
Yeah.
New Friends of Hell is actually coming out soon. And
yeah.
So, yeah.
That's pretty much it. I mean, like, we'll come back, do Southern Lord next.
We'll do Southern Lord. I know you'll be 50. I'll be 60. No, just...
Back in Parma probably for Southern Lord.
Yeah, that's fine. We got, I don't know, do you have more recording going on with MSO? Or
we're doing a recording next month. We're doing recording for Splits, and we're doing another KMB. We're doing a long player next month.
Yeah, and I'm thinking what would be great, maybe if we could, if people from the Foundry.
Mm-hmm. I know Ray pretty well.
Try to, if we do the Obsessed show in April,
could do from the Obsessed.
See if Wino would want to do like a quick
interview. Yeah, I definitely could ask. I'll talk to Ray. I'll probably be up there maybe in a couple weeks I'll probably be up there, get wings or something like that. And I'll talk to her about it.
Yeah. Let's see if we can. That'd be killer.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Especially with their new album coming out, and yeah. So, but let's make the next one very soon.
Yeah, we should make the next one not in 5 months.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
all right. Cheers.
Peace.